make sports talk great again with Curt Schilling and Steve Dace.
And greetings. Welcome to The Blaze. I am Steve Dace. He is World Series champion, future Hall of Famer Curt Schilling. Each weekday, we come here and we talk sports. We put 25 minutes on the clock, get to as many of the day's sports topics as we possibly can. Mr. Schilling, are you ready to go?
I am ready to go.
Then we begin right now. So, of course, exactly one day after I made the point again that if he wanted to sign with Philadelphia, why hasn't he done it by now? Bryce Harper signs with the Philadelphia Phillies. Now, from what I've been able to ascertain about this deal, I don't know in today's free agent environment when you're doing long-term deals. And I know a little bit about this as a Tiger fan when we gave long-term deals to Justin Verlander, and then we gave one to Miguel Cabrera when he was 33. And since we gave him that deal, he has essentially played one full season the next several years with a combined 19 home runs. All right. Now, this is a little bit different, though. This is a guy who's only 26 years old, not 33, like right. Miguel was when we gave him his. And the more I look at this deal, given where their franchise is at, I kind of think this is about the best the Phillies could have hoped for. They have a face of the franchise for the foreseeable future. There's no out clause. And I know it's weird to say this is an economically doable deal given the money we're talking about, but the way that the dollar amounts are spaced out, there's an opportunity to go out there and get another A-plus player or a couple of B-plus players to put around him and to build a team. And you know, Bryce Harper said, "Hey, I only wanted to be a free agent one time in my life." And when you look at this deal and the way it's structured, he appears to be a man of his word. So given the situation that the Phillies organization was in, where 48 hours ago, their manager was being mocked is the reason they couldn't sign this guy. And now looking at the deal that they have, and they sold 100,000 tickets alone to new customers yesterday, I think this is, given where their franchise was, about the best they could do and hope for. But what do you think? You're the expert here.
Yes, Tall. I said yesterday that the devil's in the details in a deal like this, the fine print. All the fine print was the opposite of what I expected, and the quote from Scott Boras really caught me off guard. And his quote was that Bryce wanted him to get him the longest possible contract he could get him, and it was about staying in one place. And first of all, Bryce Harper's a rare bird, right? I mean, we don't see free agents at 26 because it essentially means you have to be established in the big leagues at 20. So it's few and far between when you go out for look at the 10-year deals that have been given to free agents. They've been given to guys in their late 20s.
Pujols was 32. Cabrera was 33, yep. Right? When they got those mega deals, yeah.
So literally a contract away from their free agency.
Even Arenado, 48 hours ago, he's 28 or going to be 29 this season, somewhere in there?
Yeah.
Those extra 2 years make a big difference at this stage, right?
Yeah, because it's generally $50 to $70 million that you're just not going to get a performance for. But this lines up for so many in so many ways. And it doesn't preclude them from signing Mike Trout, which I absolutely think they're going to be in on.
Here's the thing, too. They now, I wonder, and this is where I'm going to call again. Stay in your lane, bro. I'm going to call on you here, okay? Because I wonder, does this become now a more attractive free agent destination?
Oh, absolutely.
Because it's not just that you signed Bryce Harper, but the deal that he signed, he's Mike Schmidt now. I mean, he's the face of this franchise for the foreseeable future. I mean, imagine if you're a 10-year-old Philly fan or a 12-year-old Philly fan, you're going to be like married with kids.
Yeah.
When he stops playing for your team. Think about that. Yeah. You're gonna grow up with him. We don't see that a lot in this day and age, especially a player that's just getting into his prime. And now if you go to this city that has a notoriously tough but loyal fan base, it's a major top 5 market. You go there now though as a big signee like a Mike Trout, you're not carrying that load. This guy is already established as the face of the franchise. Does that make it more attractive now?
Yes. It does for all the reasons you just said and more. There's a piece of this that is it's going to be a very interesting dynamic in that Gabe Kapler is a very unique coach, very different coach than the other guys he was talking about. And by the way, what were we saying that we were going to see other teams in the mix do? There apparently was
$50 million a year or something was what the Cubs offered or something.
Yeah. Yep. He was on. There was 2 deals on the table at 45 plus million for one. I think one was 2 years and the other one was 3. So somebody was willing to pay him an AAV of 45, which is just mind-boggling. This puts. I think. I still believe Washington's going to be better than people think, and Washington is set up for that win after you get rid of a star story. It's kind of. I'd be a little bit nervous if I was Bryce, but listen, all of the things you wouldn't expect when we hear guys like Bryce's age sign in any sport, what do we hear? Show me the money. I deserve respect. I'm getting paid. I need to be this. I need to be that. I didn't hear any of that.
Right.
None of it. I heard I want to be somewhere. I want a home. I want to be committed. I want them to be committed to me and all the things that go with that. And Philly, if anything, is committed in many, many ways as fans. I do know this. There'll be a lot of pressure in April on him. The first time he does not run out of ground ball, he had best be ready. He won't need the manager to chastise him. He won't need Matt Williams to pull him aside. He will hear it in every possible way, and the media will push it and push it and push it because there's a very aggressive sports media in Philadelphia. Not necessarily good, but aggressive, and he'll be dealing with that.
There's some subplots here I want us to address before we move on to the next topic today, related to Harper signing. The idea or the possibility of a universal DH. So the DH coming to the National League. I think that amplifies the potential of this deal when you get into years 8, 9, and 10 of it. Because, we were talking that he didn't have that monster year, transformative year in his free agent year. He did not. But when you go back and look at it, he still had 100 RBIs. And I mean, I think it's realistic.
And a 393 on base.
Yeah, I think it is entirely realistic at 26 years old that he could average 100 RBIs for the next 7 or 8 years. Don't you think so?
Absolutely.
And if he does that, now you're talking about a Hall of Fame level player, right?
It's also one of those things where statistics don't lie, but they can mislead. Mm-hmm. His career average, I think, is 279, 31, and 91 or 99. He's never had a year close to any of those numbers. He's been very yo-yo-ish.
Meaning one year the average is up and the power's down. Another year the power's up and the average is down.
330 with 42 bombs and 130 ribbies. And last year he hits 240.
Right.
He still hit 30-some bombs, but he didn't. You know what I'm saying?
Sure.
So he's never had that average year. And I don't think he has because he's 26. Mm-hmm. I think I go back to you remember the postseason when he Carlos Beltrán it? I mean, everything he did was, I think it was the Giants they played. They got beat, but he had just an incredible series.
For people that don't know the reference Curt is making, look at Carlos Beltrán's per AB production level post October 1. And then, I mean, he was a pretty good player pre-October 1, but his postseason numbers are ridiculous. That's what you're, yeah,
the best power hitter ever in October statistically. Bryce had one of those off seasons or one of those postseasons. Now he's since had a couple series that weren't as good, but the fact of the matter is, he had that season. I believe he had it at 22. You know what? That's a guy that I'm okay with in my lineup. And let's be very clear that the one of the biggest draws, if you've seen him, he's hit 14 home runs in Citizens Bank Ballpark, which is the most of any place he's hit. It's a park absolutely built for a left-handed pull hitter, and a 369 in the gap, which is laughably small, considering that. Think about the gap in Fenway.
Is this the same park Ryan Howard played in?
Yeah.
Okay, and he almost, if not for injuries at the end, I mean, he was putting up Cooperstown kind of numbers for 4, 5, 6 years in a row. Yeah.
This just works on all levels, but when you talk about winners and losers, he's a very emotional kid. You're going to have some ups and downs in the next 13 years. Is
this some vindication for Gabe Kapler, given the stories going around about him just 24 hours ago, that he was the fly in the ointment here? And do you believe that if Bruce Bochy had not announced that this was going to be his last year, that this might not have been the place where he would have ultimately signed?
No, I don't believe any of that. I think what you heard about Kapler was the media lying. making stories up, which I know, as you say, I was there. I've seen it. I watched these people create fan fiction pretty routinely. Excuse me, which you might find staggering in sports, but I'm sure you saw it as well.
Mm-hmm.
Excuse me. They're making up stories to create content. Gabe Kapler was never a fly. We now know what Bryce Harper was after. He was after a lifetime contract.
He really did not want to be a free agent again, period.
No, and so listen, if you're signing a lifetime contract with a club, you sure as hell better like the manager, because he's not a LeBron in the sense that you're not going to get a managerial change because Bryce Harper's unhappy. He's going to have to suck it up and move on, and the fans in Philly won't. I told you this. I met this kid in spring training when he was, I think, 20. He was 20, 21. And I was blown away. Very respectful, obviously very well spoken. But you remember the quote, "That's a clown question, bro"?
Yeah.
Yeah. That was a very, very mature response for a young man. And funny, by the way. He's mature beyond his years. And part of that is, if you go look at Connor McDavid, or you look at guys in the NHL who come up when they're, and a lot of them do, they'll come up out of college, or they'll come out of the juniors at 18, 19, 20. They're mature beyond their years because they've been playing an elite level, an elite brand of their sport since, most people are worrying about girls and their first driver's license and their first, all those things. He was competing. This kid won an MVP when he was 23. I mean, this is a win-win for everybody. And I got to tell you, I really think it's a win for baseball.
Final thing, that National League East, man. So we had years where in the NL Central, all the playoff teams came from the NL Central. The AL East has, we've seen plenty of years where it's the Yankees, Red Sox, and that other wild card team is the Rays or the Orioles or the what's that?
One playoff team from the NL East this year.
You just won? Because when you look at this division, a lot of the analytics are saying the Mets had the best offseason in the National League. Yep. You and I both think the Nats might have the best 1, 2, 3 of everybody's healthy starters in all of Major League Baseball. You have the Braves, which they kind of ripened all at the same time last year, and they're loaded with young talent. And now you bring in, when he, even in an off year, one of the 15, 20 best players, regardless of position in all of Major League Baseball, to another team that we forget. The Phillies were in this race, and then with the Braves, they were both kind of ripening at the same time, and then they kind of fell off a cliff, in mid-August. Okay, but this division's pretty loaded right now.
I'm brain farting. The NL East is 5 teams, right? So you're looking at.
What do you think? Think about this though. You know what? I haven't done any over-unders on baseball season records yet. I haven't even looked. Whatever the total is for the Marlins, go bet the under right now. Because they're gonna, all these teams we just mentioned, they got to play them all 19 times. All right.
76 games inside that division.
Yeah. How many of those games could they legitimately go like 20-56? I think the answer is they possibly could.
Yeah.
I mean, I'd be looking at the under on that right now. And you know what, Curt? You know why Kurt's quiet? Because he's thinking, "Crap, I got to get on Bet Online." Like 5. When are we done with the show here?
I was just thinking that one of the things I don't ever do is I generally want to have as much information in front of me as I can. In spring training, there's always a significant injury. Pay attention to pitchers' elbows and tweaks and strains because everybody lies. And I want to see what 25-man roster I'm going north with. That's. I think you're not. I don't think you're real smart to put any money down before that. Although this is when you get the best odds.
Yeah,
so.
Yeah, because the more information that comes out, the tighter the odds get. Yeah. So I mean, if their win total right now is like 58, 59, 60, I would bet the under. I would absolutely bet the under.
Yeah, I don't see them winning 60 games. No chance.
All right, let's get to some college basketball. So it's been now 2 full weeks. Duke freshman phenom Zion Williamson, the likely number 1 pick in this summer's now NBA draft. has been out with a grade 1 mild knee sprain, end quote, that he suffered against North Carolina. No ligament damage. He's even traveling, so, for folks that don't know, if you've got severe ligament damage or stuff like that, they won't put you on a plane because the air compression and everything else. All right. So he's actually traveling with the team on their road games. Well, Steve, they can take a bus to Virginia Tech. They ain't busing from Durham, North Carolina to Syracuse, New York, guys, especially in February. Right. Okay. They flew there. All right. So they're putting him on the plane. You see him up and about, during timeouts and cheering his teammates on. So how hurt do you think he is really? There were reports now that he was actually running in the hallway right after he got hurt against North Carolina to see if he could go back into the game. So put your Spidey sense on, your BS detector. Are you buying that he's going to come back and play this season, that we're going to see him in March Madness, for example?
I'm not buying it. I think he will, but I'm not. It's one word for me. Honestly, why? See, I get that, all the other things, but if I'm him, why? You're the number 1 pick in the draft. You just had a close brush with every athlete's nightmare. Every superstar athlete's nightmare is that photo right there. You're 2 months away from putting, possibly 9 figures in your pocket when you count the shoe deal. That picture should serve as notice to anybody, and I think it goes back to the NFL and the NBA are so different from a lifespan perspective and an earnings perspective. You can sign a half of $100 million deal coming out of high school in the NHL. In the NFL, you're going right into the starting lineup as a number 1 pick.
You mean in the NBA? Is what
NBA. I'm sorry. Yeah. But so those things
you can't anymore because they have rookie salary slotting,
right?
And that's why all these guys come out early is to get to the free agent contract year as soon as they possibly can. But before that CBA, you saw Glenn Robinson come out, from Purdue and get $100 million from Herb Cole, the former U.S. senator that owned the Milwaukee Bucks at the time. So you routinely saw that.
You and I have been talking. What has our focus been when we talked about the NBA other than the individual stories, the ratings?
Yeah,
how bad they are.
Yeah, they've not been good.
No.
Yeah, because there's really only 4 franchises that matter, right, to the average fan, and one of them is having a terrible regular season. We just talked about them, and that's the Lakers. I mean, right. I remember I grew up in an era.
Give me those 4 franchises.
That would be Golden State.
Right.
That would be the Celtics. That would be whatever team LeBron is on, and probably Houston because of James Harden. If I'm
not mistaken, every one of those teams has a high school graduate.
Well, what bothers me about this too is growing up loving the NBA in the 80s and 90s. The Milwaukee Bucks right now, I think, have the best record in all of the NBA. I know they're the number 1 seed in the Eastern Conference at least.
Right.
I can still give you the names of 3 or 4 members of the Don Nelson Milwaukee Bucks that my Pistons used to battle for the division title every year. Jack Sikma, Paul Pressey, Sidney Moncrief. Okay. Yep. I mean, these are.
I remember Sikma in Seattle.
Most people remember. Know the guy's name is the Greek Freak. They know his nickname, but don't know what his actual name is. And it's because of what we're talking about here. There's only a few markets in this sport that actually matter.
And so do you think I
think that's why, and you know what, by the way, that's why I disagree with you about Zion Williamson, because he's likely going to go to one of these markets that don't matter. And he's going to make a whole bunch of money, but he'll be forgotten. We'll sit here in 3 years like we do. We only remember that Anthony Davis is good because he wants out of New Orleans and he's trying to force a trade. He got all of his money and then disappeared. Karl Anthony Towns got all of his money and then disappeared. The Wiggins kid got all of his money in Minnesota, then disappeared. Zion Williamson's going to be a multimillionaire if he never plays basketball again. Though. Hold on a second. He's got millions of dollars of an insurance policy sitting there. One chance in his life to play in arguably the biggest sporting event on planet Earth other than the World Cup and the Super Bowl, and he'll never have this chance again. And he's got millions of dollars in the bank right now with an insurance policy. And no, it's not $100 million, but the $10 million that he would walk away with here is more than 99.999% of people on planet Earth. And that's his baseline. That's his baseline.
Yeah, but that's not. You don't look. I can't. I've never known an athlete to look at that money like that.
You ever known an athlete to look at the fact I got one chance to play in an all-time event and I don't want to miss it?
Not in college.
Well, but hey, how long did you spend in college playing?
Exactly. No, you're right.
So you're from a different culture. Yeah.
How many times has he been in the Final Four?
Well, this is his only year.
So he doesn't know what he's missing.
Yeah. Well,
right?
that's somewhat true, but this sport, this event is in the national consciousness, unlike almost any other.
Step outside. Let's play devil's advocate. When you look back on this year, if he plays this year and goes to the NBA, what did this year do for him in his career?
It made him the undeniable number one pick in the draft.
He's the number one pick anyway.
Most people, he wasn't even the number one high school recruit coming out of in the last class. His teammate RJ Barrett was actually rated higher. So, hey, I'm like when we talked about this before. It's his life. It's his gift. God gave it to him. I am totally fine if he wants to walk away right now because of you make compelling arguments, and I'm totally fine if he wants to say, you know what, I've got one chance. Yeah. The NCAA tournament, any round of the NCAA tournament is a much bigger stage than 90% of the games played in the NBA. Any round.
See, but hold on a second. There are times when I think as fans, you make mistakes in projecting your inner self on an athlete. Oh, what's the difference between 250 and 300 million? Or why would you go here when you can go? Those decisions are far more complicated than I think fans think in many instances. I mean, you're a lot more on point with those thoughts and processes than most people I've ever spoken with. But the fact of the matter is, just like the Bryce Harper thing, there are fans out there who are saying, I can't believe he did this, or he took a lot less, or what's the difference in again, when it's not your money and it's not your future, you tend to the things that weigh heavy on athletes don't weigh heavy on you.
And having covered sports at a close level in a past life and known some of these kinds of athletes, I watched a young man who was I watched him be electronically timed by scouts. He was a 6'1". He was one of the biggest football recruits Iowa State ever signed when Dan McCarney was the coach there. And Dan McCarney and I were good friends, so he gave me carte blanche access to the program. I used to get to go to pro days where the scouts were there and everything else. I watched him run electronically timed a sub 4.4 by an NFL scout 40. Okay, and his last year, so a 6'1" to 4.4 sub electronically timed corner is not getting out of the second round from any school in the NFL draft.
Yeah, nowadays not getting out of the first.
Yeah, probably not.
Passing game. Yeah.
And I watched him in essentially one of his last college games when Iowa State was 2-10 on its way to a 2-10 season, on a completely fluke play, blow out his knee, and never ever play in the NFL. Okay, so I understand as best as I can, not having been in your shoes. I know. I also, though, when I push back on this, it has nothing to do with I feel like I'm owed something as a fan. Okay? Right. It has everything to do with I'm a capitalist, but I'm not a materialist, and those are two totally different things. Yeah. What is the purpose of the money? What's the purpose of the fame? What is the significance that goes along with it?
From the athletes you're trying to assess right now, which is how many of them. I mean, you remember this with Johnny Manziel? Yeah, I mean, that's a perfect caricature of this generation of athletes. And not all of them, obviously, but the fact of the matter is they are almost all of them are materialistic because that's how they've been raised.
And you know what? And then we see the fruits of that when how often are they bankrupt? The average NFL player is bankrupt within 5 years of retirement, and the average career is 4 years. You look at what the divorce rate, the arrest rate, and everything else that goes along with it. So I'm a capitalist. Go get yours, but ultimately, what's the ultimate meaning that you're looking for in your life? I think we both agree that if they didn't have the one and done rule, we'd have never seen Zion Williamson wearing that uniform at all. He'd be playing for the Atlanta Hawks, and we wouldn't know what the hell he's doing most nights. I think we recognize that, right? He'd have gone right to the NBA. Okay.
Yeah, no, but don't underestimate an athlete of this caliber's mindset in, yeah, Milwaukee or whoever this market you're talking about might not be good now, but I'm good enough to make it.
And I get that.
Yeah.
All I would say is, though, understand that there's a wide angle lens here, and the moments that you've had with camaraderie and things of that. I've interviewed enough guys that were great and left the game. Like, I work with you every single day here. What days do you remember the most? The day you signed your big free agent deal, or the moments in the clubhouse like we talked about yesterday where John Vukovic is chasing down the mascot in the hallway?
I got to tell you, in an argument for you, one of the most memorable years of my life was my year at junior college.
Yeah.
That being away from home at that age with a group of guys who were like-minded, and I had more fun that year than just about any year.
I mean, if you didn't have the insurance deal and all that stuff, I'd be saying to him, "Don't be an idiot, man." Okay, yeah. But if the worst thing you can do in life is, here's my low bar. I walk out here with $10 million. That's a pretty good place to be on planet Earth. That's all I'm saying. Okay.
No, I'm with you. I'm with you.
Great stuff, Curt. We left a lot on the board, but we'll get to that when we come back on Monday. Have a great weekend, man.
And we won't be doing the Bryce Harper assessment.
No, we will not have to do that now because it is done. You were right. He was going to sign by the weekend, and he did. So there you go. Take care.
Take care, bub.